the National Security Council and National Security Council system. You have before you four gentlemen that have been National Security Advisors. I got about 3 or 4 more in the audience, so I couldn't get everybody on the stage. He's got a remarkable career. And my goal tonight is to try to help all of you understand how this institution works and some of the big questions. So I'm going to just be the moderator and try to stay out of the way with my questions. The first thing that I would like to ask you is this. You know, the National Security Council really sits at the fault line of American constitutional governance. There's no question that the Congress has a right to oversee the actions of departments, of the Defense Department, State Department. And there's no question that the President has a right of privacy in his decision making, and we call that executive privilege. And the National Security Council sits squarely on top of that fault line. You know, you are there for the President to help pull the government together, but you are coordinating the activities of agencies that have accountability to the Congress. And I would like to just ask each of you to just reflect on that from your own experience. You know, Henry has a trump card, so he can interrupt you anytime he wants. So I'm going to start with you, H.R. on this question.
Thank you. Well, I think it's very important to the President and for all of us to ensure that Congress can fulfill its constitutional role, which oftentimes, as you know, is vital to our democracy because Congress represents the American people, but it's also Congress's role that's often critical in providing some kind of corrective to what could be otherwise policies and for us across the administration to be able to access the great work that their staffs do. So the departments, as you mentioned, John, have the primary responsibility for that interaction with the Hill. But what we've intended to do for the National Security Council is to have conversations with senators and congressmen and staffers about our key policy initiatives and early in the development of what we're calling our integrated strategies. So we have found that's immensely helpful because, first of all, a lot of the problems that we're facing require legislative remedies, and all of them require resources. So I think that our emphasis has been, related to your question, on early consultation from the NSC, but obviously continued coordination between the departments, the relevant departments, and the Hill and the relevant committees.
Jim and Steve, each of you had administrations that had somewhat contentious relations with Congress. How does this, because they would obviously want to know what you're saying and what you're thinking, but you have an obligation as President to be his advisor. Jim, how do I think?
Well, I think the most important thing is that for the National Security Advisor and the NSC is to, on matters of national and international security, project an image of bipartisanship. And in my relationship with President Obama, I asked him for that latitude to resist putting a political spin on big issues until such time as those issues have been developed. And obviously, it's a political decision. And during my time, followed Steve, we decided to combine Homeland Security and National Security into one staff, and that was a big difference in terms of the size of the staff. But I think the bipartisan approach is extremely important. In my military career, I had the good fortune of spending a few years on Capitol Hill, and as a Marine liaison officer, and my motto was always do for the majority what you do for the minority and vice versa. And then I found out when I became National Security Advisor that all of a sudden I was a Democrat, and I didn't know I was. And you have to get through that, and you can only get through that by working at it and by making sure that you reach out to both sides. And I think that's extraordinarily important on security issues.
Well, of course, the National Security Advisor is not confirmed by the Senate. He does not testify on the record before Congress. But I, like I'm sure all my predecessors, spent a lot of time consulting informal, up on the briefing, explaining policies and all the rest. It's an important part of the job. I learned everything I know about being National Security Advisor from the members in the front row here, Greg Schofield. And one of the things, worked for him when he was National Security Advisor the first time. But we served together on the Power Commission, and one of the most important things about the Power Commission, which was established by President Reagan in 1986 in the wake of the Iran arms sales, was to stave off an effort by the Congress to basically take over the national security structure, require the National Security Advisor to determine, set the number of people, set the organization structure. And Brent led the charge to frustrate that effort because it's not just an issue of privacy, it's an issue of separation of powers. If the president cannot gather around him or her a staff of people in which he or she can have great confidence, then the president is not going to be able to carry out the constitutionally prescribed roles of the president and presidency, where the president has a lot of roles in our leadership. So it's a fundamental constitutional principle that needs to be observed. And it is always subject to struggle because at times of war, presidents get more power, at times the presidents seem to get in trouble, the Congress takes them back. Tensions are always there. But it's very important for the institution of the presidency to preserve that group that is able to support something that constitutional right.
Henry, nobody had a boss that had more difficult relations with the Congress ultimately than Richard Nixon. How did you balance your obligations to be his advisor, but also the accountability to the Congress?
Well, the question of accountability arises in two ways. One, how the Congress can control the main lines of policy. If some of it is carried out by the NC, and some measures that have to be taken in a essentially secret mode, openings of negotiations, the exploration of new avenues. So that's the basic problem. In the administration in which I served was during the Vietnam War, and you cannot say that bipartisanship was at its height. Some of the people who had started us into that road, that Joyce and Peace movement, so passion to a grave. President Nixon had a combative side to all of this, all of this. But in fact, what we did is two things. As a matter of principle, we did not, or President Nixon did not permit that his staff members could testify before congressional committees or could be subpoenaed by congressional committees. But we agreed with Senator Fulbright that we would have private meetings, that he would invite me and the members of the Foreign Relations Committee to drinks in his house, and that I would come periodically and brief them. So no formal record was kept of these briefings, and it was not a subpoena so that, and we invariably briefed the leading members of the various senatorial committees. The problem was there was a philosophical difference, and the country was so deeply divided that